Be like Berl. Be the good in the world. Be like Berl.
Hey everyone, welcome to our Be Like Berl podcast, where we interview teens and young adults about a tragedy, trial, or tribulation they dealt with as a child, and Jesus brought them through that by using folks in their lives who were being like Berl. Today's guest is here, but before I hand it over to Rachel, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Rachel.
So we are back for episode 2 with Dylan, and we went through everything last time and talked about the divorces of his parents and the family stuff that he had been through. And today we have we're going to be talking more about how he has experienced several deaths in his family and friend circle. And so, Dylan, we'll just let you, everybody knows you now. This is the second podcast with you, so we'll just let you go ahead and just kind of talk about the experiences that you've had with death at only 19 years old, what all of you guys been through.
So I'll say, like, one thing, the first one that, like, really was hard on me was my Papa Tim when he passed away. It was in like 2019, well, we're talking like family. It was in 2019. He was killed in a car crash, and he was helping a friend, and they were driving on the way back, and a car on the other side of the interstate jumped the median and hit him head on, and it put the dash down on him and had a bunch of different medical problems, and he ended up passing away in the hospital afterwards. So I remember how I found out about it. I wasn't there or anything, but I was at my dad's house actually, and we're kind of just sitting on the couch, and my stepmom at the time got a call, and it was my dad, and letting her know that he had been in a car crash. And I was like, oh no, this is awful. I didn't know anything about it. Well, then they had told us that he had broke his leg, and that's the only thing they knew because they didn't know anything at the time. They came to the scene, and he was already gone in the ambulance, or like leaving the ambulance. So I remember me and my brother were like, he's going to be fine. It's just a broken leg. He's going to be okay. He'll pull through with everything. Well, we went back to sleep, finally were able to go to sleep, and then we were woke up again by my dad, and he went and sat us down and was like, let us know that he passed away. Remember, it was just like automatic shock because he was like one of my biggest role models. So it was really, really hard in the moment of like trying to realize, that I just lost that huge person in my life. So after that, it still hadn't clicked at all that had really happened because I hadn't seen any of my family on that side. So I went to my mom's, and everybody's, super upset. Well, then we go, and I remember it still had not sunk in with even seeing like how upset my family was until we went to, we had our visitation before everybody else. And I remember seeing him in the casket, and it was just like automatic. You just poured over me like this really did happen. I'm really never going to be able to see him again, alive in his, body form. So it was just no more of those jokes, no more he was a big jokester, no more of those jokes, nothing like that anymore. So it was huge, like just changing everybody in the family. Big impact,
You said you were angry at first.
Mm-hmm.
Who were you angry at first?
Well, I had prayed that night because I was like, it's a broken leg, hopefully God will be with him and help him pull through and be strong. And then, he didn't. So I was like, had some like anger towards God for not, pulling such a good person out of a bad time like that. So later, I realized, it's not his fault. It's not his fault that car, decided to speed and crash into him, and he, everything happens for a reason. I feel like, and I'm sure God had a great reason for why he took Papa Tim at that time. So.
Well, and for those again, just relating back, his Papa Tim was my Uncle Buck, and that's the one that has inspired Officer Buck. In
the first book is dedicated,
and that's why at the end of the first book is dedicated to him and his memory. And he was the impact that it made on not just the family. I will always remember the impact it made on the community, just because that man was loved so much by so many different people. And I just remember having your grandmother in the vehicle with me. I was in emergency management at the time, and her and Jesse and your mom was in the vehicle with me, and we was in a funeral procession, and just driving from the funeral home to the burial site, and all through town, man, the signs, the people that was all standing next to the highway, just to see him one last time, and driving through. And I mean, it was just the feeling of community that happened when that man passed was just a real statement on who he was.
Well, he was the epitome of what we talk about, like hashtag be like Berl. He was the epitome of that for everybody. So I can't imagine you personally had him as a role model. The community felt attached to him. We felt attached to him because he was, we called him Papa Tim because you called him Papa Tim. But, he was Papa Tim, but I can't imagine, like, you had this personal, such a wonderful role model, especially when we talked about, like in the first podcast, you went through these divorces and this family situation, but Papa Tim was this like tried and true in your life, and then you lost that, and your life really changed in an instant again because of his death, right?
Yeah, it was like he was, no matter what, the one trying to just cheer everybody up. Even whenever, you could tell he was going through things, like no matter what, just want to cheer people up, and it made him feel better by that. I think I really took that to account after everything, is like, he's gone, I need to be there for my, my family, but also at the same time for everybody else that, he left the impact on them. And I seen, like, at his funeral and at the visitation, I mean, the line of people coming to see him was out the door, wrapped around the building.
Even
like
criminals he had arrested.
Yes, even people he arrested had came and wanted to pay their respects because he treated them, just as anybody else, even though they had done something wrong, because that's just who he was. No matter what, he just wanted to take care of everybody around him and treat everybody as family.
Well, and say what you tell about what happened at the...
So at where he had been hit on the interstate at the crash site, right after it happened, like, he was just worried about everybody else around him. Like, there was the person that was in the vehicle with him, something was going wrong with the vehicle, they were afraid it's going to catch on fire or something like that, and Papa Tim was just like, get away, go call 911, don't get in here, because he just wanted to look out for him, even because he probably knew, he was hurt, didn't want anybody else to be hurt. So that was one thing. I remember we had a first responder talk to us about how it was a lady, and she had leaned in to check on him, and the dash was over on him and had him pinned, and she leaned in and hit her head on the vehicle, and he looked at her and said, are you okay? And it's just like, in that moment, he's in so much pain, I'm sure, and he's blocked in, and he probably knows he's not going to make it, but no matter what, he's just checking on everybody around him, because that's just, like I said, who he was. No matter what, no matter what he's going through in any moment, he just wanted to check on somebody.
And I remember that he had a scar from a childhood trauma that he had, and he never would have known he had a scar, except it was a literal scar, and that didn't stop him. He just still found ways to, he didn't use it to be bitter. He used it to make everybody happy.
He I guess you're talking about when he was in that house fire.
Yep.
Yeah, and they had to do other, but yeah, he was a person that I looked up to like nobody else. I mean, he would get on to you, if you're doing something wrong,
sure.
quick. Yeah. But it was like one of those things of like, he looked at everything as a learning experience. And I feel like that's something I really took too, is like, from him, is everything really is a learning experience, like everything, like I said, everything happens for a reason, I feel like. And there's a lot of things that happen that's bad that can, like I said, turn into something good, or, a lot of positives can be taken from it and you can learn from it. And he was big about that, the learning from your mistakes. And he let you know what your mistake was very quickly, but he's like, just learn from it, and had so much grace after something would happen.
I think that was one of the cool things that, hearing you talk and just thinking about him as we're sitting here talking, one of the cool things about him that we could probably all learn from is the accountability that he held for you and him and everybody around him, right? I mean, you knew where that line was with him, but you respected it because there was grace and love right behind it.
Yeah, he definitely, he was the epitome of grace and patience. And, I mean, it always shocked me, the things that he had seen being an officer as well. And the things he had went through, and to golly, to just to be able to love. I mean, that's why there was a hashtag Be Like Buck.
for a long time.
For a long time after that and of course we're Be Like Berl. It all follows that. As he was so kind and he was so gentle. He was an officer when he had to be an officer. He was an officer, but then there were so many times he had so much grace and patience. It's better than anybody I'd ever known.
Yeah.
He had so much, like, one thing too is he always made time for, I feel like, everybody, even if it, when I used to go fishing with him a bunch, and no matter what, if he knew that he was going to go in the water and I was down there, he would be like, hey, do you want to stay over? And we'd stay over and watch SpongeBob, or we watched Jaws. He loved watching Jaws and Looney Tunes and all the goofy stuff. So we'd watch that all night, and then the next morning we get up bright and early and go fishing. It was just the stories on the boat, the teaching me the techniques of fishing and different tricks and different spots, and it just is always like draining my mind, the stuff that he's taught me and what he meant to me in that moment. And it's like, even if I forget the little things he taught me or the little tricks, it's like I always knew that he cared no matter what to pass it on, and always took the time to show me something.
And you were his step grandson. So, sometimes, but you were his real grandson.
That's one thing too, like, I'll get into here in a minute about my biological grandfather was murdered way before I came along. But he definitely, filled the spot, the void for sure. Like I never felt like, that I was missing that, because he was my grandpa, my Papa Tim. So, and he was the same way for my mom. I mean, he's like, definite father figure for my mom. So that, me seeing that too, in the way he treated her and, helped her maneuver through life, really helped me like see how it should be too. And he was how it should be,
You are exactly right. He was how it should be.
Yeah, Buck was definitely a godsend. There's no doubt. I mean, like you said, filling the void and being an uncle to me. After Uncle Timmy was killed back years ago, I would have never thought that there would be another man like Uncle Timmy, because he was which both, I will say, both. It was one of the things, they're both named Tim.
Yes.
The first one.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's not let that confuse
Yeah, that could be
people.
very confusing.
Yes.
But my aunt's first husband was Uncle Timmy. So when I say Uncle Timmy, that's who I'm referring to. But he, great man, taught me how to ride a four-wheeler and everything. And then, was killed. And then, she had went through other relationships and stuff. And I never thought there'd be another man that would fill that void of that kind of uncle. And then here come, what we say, Papa Tim or Uncle Buck. And he was, man, the Lord sent him, broke the mold when he made him. I mean, it was just.
He was something special to me, definitely, and like you said, so many other people. And one thing that definitely sat with me too is like he was. You want to talk about like the little things that made him happy, like Christmas. He was a Christmas guy, like big time, and the little jokes at Christmas time. And I'll never forget Christmases at Nana's and Papa Tim's. It was so special, like the way they decorated everything, and he always took the time to, make sure everybody felt like they were in their own little winter wonderland type thing, and make jokes and stuff that always lightened the room. So.
And his birthday was right
after Christmas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it was always a joke, because you got Mom, her birthday was right there at Christmas too, and it was just always a running joke.
So, we definitely can see where the loss of your Papa Tim, affected you, right? I would like to make note, though, that his legacy doesn't have to die with him, right? He instilled that in you boys. And I see you more than I guess I see Luke, but I see it in you, all the good things about him.
He definitely impacted me so much, and like the way I go about things, it really, really changed. And that's like, there's a lot of bad parts, we lost him, but I was like, God, he has his path for everybody. So I know why, he had a reason for taking him, I'm sure. And I feel like losing him made me feel like I needed to somewhat fill the void. I'll never be him, I'm sure, but to try to live every day, like trying to be a little bit more like him and trying to really impact. Like, I would love if I could leave Earth impacting as many people as he did, because it was just like when we passed, it was seeing how many people that he impacted just, changed my life and the way I look at things.
And I will say that I like to use this when people say he took him or whatever, but he didn't take him. That wreck did.
Yes.
But he did give him a home in heaven where you'll see him again.
And it definitely lives on through us, through you, through the things that you do, through the book.
Yes.
That's one of the things. I seriously can't. Every time we see a what's the store? Five Below.
Oh, gosh.
Every time we go by a Five Below, I gotta go, that's a cool store. Every
Because that
time.
was a buck joke.
Because it but would say every time Abby would say something about we went to Five Below, that's a cool store. Every single time. So I have to make sure and keep that one going.
Yes, he was definitely a bargain hunter. 100%. Every yard so he's seen anywhere headed somewhere, he's like, I'll make a quick stop. And he'd come with like a bunch of discount fishing lures and random stuff. And he had, if one thing broke, you best believe he had something to replace it right there on him. No matter what.
But Papa Tim was not the only death you experienced. So tell us who else.
So I guess the next one that I would like to talk about would be my pawpaw Daryl, which is my dad's dad. He was always, I didn't get to go to my dad's as much when I was younger, but he definitely did not, make it hard for him to make an impact. Like, I would stay there like summers with him, and he had his own business, so it was easy for him to watch us during the summers when we were out of school. My dad went to work. He'd drop us off, and he showed me my first few horror movies and terrified me, gave me nightmares for a little while. But I was like, he was definitely one of those like tough love guys. But he, again, jokester, making jokes, made sure to, let you know when you done wrong real quick. But he made a huge impact he was a big fisherman. Loved to talk about fishing and teach me little things. I'd go up, he made cabinets. So I would go up to his little cabinet shop and, I'd get a nail and a hammer and, just he'd be like, go get a board and hit the nail into it and then pull it out and do it again. And he's just like wanted to teach us things all the time. And he was like the glue that held my dad's family together. And my nanny and my Uncle Cody and all of us, he held the whole family together. Well, he got diagnosed with lung cancer. And we knew he had problems. He had lost half his leg on one side and half his foot on the other with different medical problems. But he had a lot of problems and was getting sickly, and we didn't know what was going on. He had scans of his lungs, and we didn't know what was happening. Well, finally, they found a little spot in his lung, and it was lung cancer, and it wasn't 3 months after that. He was in and out of the hospital, no matter what, but he was such a fighter. I mean, such a fighter. He went through so many things before that, like I said, losing half his leg. That was a huge change for him because he was such a strong-willed, working, I'm going to do it myself man. He had to realize, he needs help sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that was big for him, and it was big for me to see, he would make jokes about it and be lighthearted about it, but I knew it bothered him that he didn't have half that leg anymore and he couldn't do the things he used to be able to do. But seeing him fight through those struggles and stuff really set with me too, just seeing how he went about it.
Do you feel like you watched him suffer some?
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I wanted to get into is he had lung cancer. It was 3 months later. He'd been out of the hospital, and finally he said, I don't want to do any more treatments. I just want to go home, be where I was meant to be, where I love to be, and go to God's country is what he called it. And he's like, I just want to go back to my little house and, whatever happens, happens. Nature will take its course and whatever happens. So we had went down there and sat with him, and he had just got home that day, and we brought him home, and we thought it'd be, a couple weeks, or we never knew how long it would be. And that night we could see he was really going downhill, and we didn't know how long it would be at all. Well, we had to keep giving him little medicines and stuff, and it was so weird seeing somebody who would, come to and talk to us, and he would go out, and it was you never know if that's going to be the last time that you get to talk to him. Well, it was late that night. My dad was trying to go get more medicine for him, and I was holding his hand and stuff, and he ended up passing away. And it was just you can kind of feel somebody pass away in front of you is a crazy feeling. You can kind of see their soul leave them. You can feel it by looking at them, they change color, and it was just crazy feeling to see that happen. But
how old were you then?
It was 2022, so I was 16, somewhere around there. So it was crazy. My nanny and everybody was really struggling in the moment, but trying to be strong for the moment. But that's something I'll really never forget. And seeing my dad go through that struggle of living his father just made me hold on to him a little tighter, and everybody else in life, because you never know. Like I said, it was 3 months after he was diagnosed, he was gone. Mm-hmm. So just so sudden, and really, really impacted me too.
Yeah, we'll talk about, I think, more on, because that wasn't the only death you experienced. Mm-mm. So who else?
I had I would say, I'll go back to the other grandpa, my Papa Timmy, that we have talked about. He was murdered and stuff like that. That really, I never got to meet him. My mom was 7 whenever he passed. He was 27, so I never got to meet him, obviously. But just hearing stories, and people always tell me I look like him. and I act like him and stuff like that. And there's little similarities that I see, and it's like I don't really look like I'm another man in my family much. I don't really look like that. So seeing him be able to go, like I feel like I'm from him, and I never got to meet him, but I can see the resemblance, and it's like it lets me see, that he is my grandpa, even though I didn't get to meet him. And I see we have little home videos and stuff of he would put my mom on his back and, crawl around on the ground and act like a bull, and he'd pick her up and throw her in the air. And it was like so like special to see that, because it shows me like I think I'm pretty goofy, and stuff like that. And I feel like that kind of came to me too, even though I never got to meet him or anything.
Yeah, and that death, even without you knowing him, impacted your family almost repeatedly every year when it came up on the anniversary date of his murder, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, because they were a big family.
Yes.
And so he had all these people that kind of went through that mourning process again every year on the anniversaries of his death. And then as well as you talked a little bit about
the parole hearings.
Yeah, parole hearings,
of the man that murdered him. So,
and we won't give him the luxury of his name on this podcast.
No, but we would go to, like, I was too young to go any of the parole hearings before this last one, but this last year on Halloween, I was of age, and they asked, do you want to say a speech? Because we ever give our little spiel to the parole board and everything about why we think he should or should not be, let out. And I made a speech, and told him, the way I feel about it. I didn't think he needed to be let out because he didn't show any remorse or anything, but just going there and seeing him and the way he acts and how it really brings everything to life, because I never really get to see, anything involving Papa Timmy, but seeing how when we were there, how much it hurt my mom and my grandma and my aunts that was there through all of it. It's just like really opened my eyes of like, this was horrible what happened. And like I talked to y'all about earlier, like, everybody holds a lot of resentment towards him and everything, but I hold resentment too, but I try to forgive the man that he is now. I don't forgive what he done then, because that was awful, but I hope that he's made changes and he's became a better person because of people like Papa Tim and people like that in my life. That's like, always try to give them grace in moments. And like, that's one of those things that makes it really hard, because he still doesn't show resentment really at all for what he done, but
remorse, you mean?
Yeah, it doesn't show a remorse for what he done at all. So it was hard going there and speaking to him and seeing that he still just, even though we're talking about how much it bothers us and how much it hurt us and our family, he doesn't really, have any remorse for it at all. So it was hard with that. But like I told you earlier, one of my favorite Bible verses is Romans 12:21, and it says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." So I try to take, God's word there and try to be like, take it in my heart and say, he has his problems and he made his mistakes, but just because he made those mistakes don't mean I have to, feel like I have to get revenge on him or feel like I need to hold something against him, because, that
or
makes
hold any anger about it at all.
Because it makes me just as bad as he is. I don't want to be that person. I just want to live my life. God will decide what happens in the future with him, but with me, I just want to be like, let it free. Try to let it have no anger or anything towards him, because of, like I said, the Berls in my life that's told me, just, try to have grace towards people and don't hold anything in. Try to let it out and let your emotions out, because, if you hold stuff like that in, it could really, really change who you are and, show sides of you that you don't want to be shown. So good. I feel like that was definitely how that impacted me a lot, was going to the parole hearings and stuff like that.
So, to show that growth and faith and strength that you have there when it comes to seeing that man that did that, and learning from your Papa Tim and stuff on others on how to try to learn to let that go is incredible. Because I know for you it had to be hard, because every time that comes around, every year that comes around, it's like Uncle Timmy died again. Every year, when you get to the anniversary of his death and you get to the parole hearings, it's just like it happens all over again. So being able to see that kind of pain in your family, and then seeing how this man is not showing any kind of remorse, but to still be able to go, I need to be able to forgive. It's very cross-like, and very strong in faith.
I feel like holding on to something like that too. Not only is it like for him forgiving him, but for me, because if I don't partially try to like not necessarily forgive him, but like let it go, then it'll hurt me and weigh down on me. So I think that's one thing too. Like no matter what happens, just try to ease and let things go, because if I hold on to that, that's something that would just make my entire personality and everything different, because I'm holding so much weight from that.
That's good. So, we've talked about 3 grandpas, and who else have you lost?
I was just going to go to like the family friends now. So if in the last podcast, I talked about how my mom rented a house for a little while in between her last divorce and her now husband. And it was just us. Well, we had a family friend that had struggles. His name was William, but he had struggles with his family at certain times and stuff. So Mom was like, he asked, if he could come live with us. And Mom was like, for sure, like we loved him. So he came and lived with us for like, I think it was over a year or right at a year. And it was like another brother. He was big guy, but another brother. He was always goofy and making jokes and stuff too. And it was like literally having another brother. He was Luke's age, my older brother, and it was just, we had such a tight connection. Like those times when we go to the park, like I was talking about with Mom and everything, he would go with us, and it was just a great time. And he had made a really big impact on me too. Well, I think it was 2018, so it was right before Papa Tim passed. He was at a party with friends, and he had moved out of our house to go back with his mom and everything, and he had gotten to some around the bad crowd and stuff like that, and he ended up, they left the party, and they were driving, and a cop seen they were going too fast or something happened, and they followed him. Well, then they decided they wanted to run, so they ran from the cop, and the cop didn't even chase them. He just let them run, and they wrecked, and the tree hit right on his side when they wrecked. They hit a tree, and it killed him, and killed and injured other people in the vehicle too. But I think it was so hard for me losing him, because he had left and got with that wrong crowd, and so my mom was, kind of like, he can make his own decisions, he's gone and stuff. So, but I don't want y'all to be around him if he's going to be doing things like that. So it was like, I hadn't seen him in a long time. So it was hard to see, like, lose somebody that you feel so strongly for, but you hadn't seen him in a long time. Mm-hmm. It was hard, but he was definitely a big, big part of my life and my entire family's life. And just to get that call too of, he had passed away, it was a huge hit to the heart. Like, it was like, man, and if, it makes you rethink things about, like, if we could have, done something different to keep him with us and keep him away from making the bad decisions and going with the wrong crowd, then maybe it could have changed the outcome. But at the same time, it's like, you can't hold that weight either. You just have to pray for him.
And you can't hold him hostage.
Yes.
Because he had a mom on the other, somewhere else.
Yes. So that was a hard thing to go about, but
to navigate.
You wanted to see too. I mean, he was so young. It's like,
I think he was 17.
You think a lot at that point. Most of us, when you think of death, you think of the older generations, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have that type of impact on someone at your age, you're like, whoa, hello. Especially as a teenager, you're like, this, hopefully will help you grip a hold of life a little bit. Mm-hmm.
So for timeline's sake, for those that are listening, it was actually William's death, and then in 2018, and then not too long after that, it was Papa Tim, and then a little bit later, it was your Grandpa Darrell.
Grandpa Darrell, yes.
And then
recently, this last year, I went to school with a guy named Tristan. He was one of my close friends. I had classes with him, and he was always life of the party too. Like, big football player, and just, I loved him as a brother too. Just a friend. I never got to hang out with him much out of school, but like in school, he was like my number one. I always want to go talk to him and hang out with him. And he was a person you could look up to too, because, big football player, you look at that, and he was always making jokes and being goofy, and he was just somebody that I could go talk to if I needed to, or he would, brighten up my day in class. He was just somebody to be fun to be around. Well, it was last summer, right after my junior year ended, and we were in the same class. he was headed home one night late and wrecked and hit a tree also, and it killed him. So I remember it was right before my senior pictures. It was the night before. So it was really late at night. I don't think they found him until like middle of the night.
Yeah.
It was. I think it was early morning. Mm-hmm. So I had went to senior pictures and I had no clue. Still had no clue about any of it. And I remember it was weird because I walked in and was talking to one of the teachers, and I was like making a joke about like, where's Tristan at? Because, and that was the teacher that I'd had the class with him,
right.
And we were really close friends in there. So I was like making a joke about where he's at, and everybody was kind of acting weird. And I was like, well, that's weird, like that's, normally they're like, goofy about it back towards me, like making jokes about where is he at. And then I seen one of my other friends come in, and he looked really upset. And I was like, wonder what's happening. So I went and asked him, and he said, do you not know? And I was like, no. And he was like, Tristan passed away in a car crash. And I was like, oh no, like it just hit me. And I was like, it made me feel awful because, I just walked in and said that. And I'm like, it made me feel horrible. But it was just like, losing somebody that close again is like, he's my age, goes, to my school. I was about to start school again and start seeing him more because I didn't see him much over the summer. And it was like losing, like losing a best friend. It was really hard too. And to see how the community came together around that too, and losing somebody young like that was really special.
Well, and Dale, no, there's not many young people out there that's your age that's dealt with death like you have. Mm-hmm. You have been handed a lot, and I think, through those things, there's things that God can provide. God doesn't take them from us, like Richard said earlier, but he does provide a way to deal with them. He provides a way to be able to see them again. He provides a way to offer eternal life, to be with them, one day in glory. But he also, he was able to take that and go, you know what? Dylan, look at how he's handling these. Look how strong he is. Mm-hmm. He can make an impact and help others that are dealing with death. If other kids are losing their best friend, or they're losing their grandparent, or they're losing, you're just somebody that they can see off this podcast, or they can, if Abby came to me because she lost somebody close, I could say, Abby, talk to Dylan.
Right.
Because you've dealt with it. And I think I can see that strength in you that you should be very proud of. And I think all the men and all the guys that have left this life would be very proud of you. And of the young man that you're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
I know one thing that you had said was that you had said on the questionnaire thing is like about not bottling those emotions up.
Yes.
And so through all of this, do you find that, it might be a little easier to just kind of stuff them down and move on and do something, but that's not something that you recommend, right? That's one of your words of wisdom.
Definitely. It was like even with Tristan passing and stuff, is like I've learned from my Papa Tim and stuff, let it out and be there and be strong for everybody. But, you have to let your emotions out, because if not, you're not going to be able to be strong for somebody else. You have to let your emotions out, then you can be strong for other people. You can't bottle them down and then try to be there for somebody, and then in the end, you're, just as bad as them. Because, you're holding it in, you're not letting it out, and you can't really help them. So that was one thing I learned from my Papa Tim. And then with Tristan, it was like, I learned, don't keep it in. So one way I found to kind of cope with it is his mom. I know she was going through a lot because, she just lost her son, and it was really hard for their family, I'm sure. So one way it could help me and help me cope was every month on the anniversary of his passing. I was never really close to his parents or anything, but every month on the anniversary of his crash and his passing, I would send her a text just checking up on her. Even if I didn't involve him, like I would check up on her and ask if she ever needed anything or anything like that. And that was something I could do to give me closure to, I'm helping somebody or trying to help somebody, and maybe it's helping her. And I hadn't seen her very often, but then I'd seen her and she had came up to me and seen me, and like I could see her face lit up. She walked up to me and was like, I just want to let you know your texts, you just seem to be able to send a text at the right time. And I'm like, to me, it was like, man, I made that impact and made a little help. I'm sure she still struggles all the time, but just seeing that something that helped me get over something can help somebody else also, that just shows you what a good deed or a good saying can do for not only you, but somebody else also.
Right.
The Lord Jesus sent that text at the right time. He just used you as the vessel.
So that's something I think you can do is just nothing ever comes bad out of a good deed or something, that can just brighten somebody's day.
I like that. Nothing bad ever comes out of a good deed. Did Papa Tim teach you that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well,
Definitely.
you definitely, you definitely harness the memories of your grandfathers that have passed on. We were talking about it a while ago and laughing at how, you've looked like your Uncle Timmy or your Papa Timmy. You laugh and joke and cut up and live life like Papa Tim, and then you work hard and you like your
Papa Daryl.
Papa Daryl. So I mean, you definitely encompass them very well. So they would be very proud of you as well, and seeing how their legacy is living on through you. So
is there anybody that you can think of that, like during those times of grief and throughout your life, did you just gave an example of being like Berl that you do, and I think that's a great.
In this, it's him being like Berl.
Yeah, that's you being like Berl, and you're the one that was also grieving. But like, is there anybody else that you can think of that would just be something good to add here, that were people like were being like Berl during your times of grief?
Yes, I think that, one thing that definitely like really hit me close to home was after Papa Tim's passing. It was like Papa Tim would always come and eat like Christmas dinner or like Thanksgiving dinner with me at school. And whether it was him or Mom, they always made sure somebody was there. Well, nobody had ever, I was worried because, nobody had told me anything about it, but I was like thinking, who's going to come see me this year because Papa Tim's gone. So I'll never forget, I walked into the cafeteria and my Uncle Danny was there. And I was like, man, it was just like, just seeing him was like, whew, like he's being like Berl because he's there for me. And you have other family that can try to take over and fill those voids. And it really, really hit close to home.
Not only was he family, but he was a brother in the police department.
Yes.
So he had.
Yes.
Hold on. Your Uncle Danny's a good man.
Yes. Love him very much. And he ended up taking Papa Tim's position right after, and he had to fill that void, try to fill that void too with the community. So that was definitely one person that I would say was definitely like Berl in that moment. It really, really, really helped me through that time. And it was like, another thing, nothing bad comes out of a good deed, because he didn't have to do that. They didn't know it was going to bother me, that nobody was coming. But whenever he was there, it was like meant so much,
There was nobody in the world that could have filled that position of assistant chief like Danny. And seeing, I know that just made Papa Tim's, he couldn't have asked for no better. I mean, that was the man. He would have wanted to do that.
It was very special to me. So that was one thing I would definitely say. And just family has definitely been there for me through everything. And whether, like I said, I'm big on when I help somebody, and I think I got that from Papa Tim and people like that, is whenever I help somebody, it helps me like cope big time. So not only if my family wasn't strong enough to be there to kind of guide me in that moment, if I could help them a little bit, it helped me tons. So whether they were guiding me or I was helping guide them through a hard time, it definitely just helped me no matter what.
I hear in your message that, one of the things that kids should pick up on this is it may be a hard time to do something nice, to hold a door open, to make a joke, but it's in the return on that investment and just taking that step and showing kindness and love is going to fulfill you as much as it is them.
Even, like you hold a door, if they're, they just walk off and don't say, thank you or anything, still, no matter what, you're going to feel good because you've done it. You don't need, when you're doing a good deed, you don't have to have that, reassurance that they're thankful for it because you realize you've done something good, So I think definitely good deeds and just trying to make positive out of everything can go a long way.
And we've kind of talked about what, you learned not to do, but let's talk about what you learned not to do watching your grandpa suffer, because this is a podcast teenagers and young adults are gonna read. But what did you learn from that?
You talking about Papa Daryl? So he had lung cancer, as I talked about. Well, I'd seen him smoking for years and years and that type of thing. And whenever it really, didn't really occur to me that that's why he was in that position, or that could really play a big part of why he was in that position, until that night whenever I was sitting with him, and I could feel like, him struggling to breathe and struggling to like just be there. And it's like, you could hear the fluid in his lungs and everything that was, failing on him. And it was like, really opened my eyes to, maybe if he would have just, not had some cigarettes or stopped smoking, that he could still be here with us and still be here with me and still be showing me stuff. And it's like, I'm not going to hold resentment towards him for that. But it's, like you say, learn from people's mistakes. And that's definitely like, you won't see me smoking because of that type of thing. And it's just, that shows that showed me that family is more important. You don't want to be the selfish person, that takes you away from your family. You want to be the person that makes the extra step to like, put everything into place to where you're doing your part to be there as long as you possibly can for your family.
And let's be clear that back when your papa Daryl started smoking, it was the cool thing to do, and the warnings weren't out there then either. I mean, so it's not something he knew about like people know about these days.
Definitely. But we know about it now, so we need to try to stay
we know about it now,
it.
and Dylan says, say no to smoking.
Yes,
kids.
Definitely.
And vaping.
Yes.
And vaping,
Yes.
So do you feel like God worked in your, I know we've kind of talked about a lot of different situations, but in your grief, have you saw God kind of work through people, or, anything you want to say particularly about that?
Yes, I see. Well, whenever I see something good happen, most of the time I'm always like, give the glory to God, because he's the reason why we're all here. So even like the little things, like I said, like with Tristan's mom, like seeing that, I'm like giving glory to God that he, helped me send those messages and helped me build up the courage to send those messages when I was praying about it. And it's like, it helped her. So that's God's working in both of our favor. Or like just when Papa Tim passed and me praying about him saving him, well, it wasn't his fault that, he was taken, but it was him that showed me all those people that came in to, be there and see Papa Tim before he passed. It showed me the legacy that he left, and it showed that maybe I should be a little bit more like him, or maybe I should try to follow after him and all those things he done, because he helped so many people. And it's like, God was there, and I'm sure gave Papa Tim the willingness to do all those nice things. So it's just God working in everybody's favor.
Well, I'm going to tell you what's killing me is here we are, this is the 6th episode, two with Dill, but we've had 6 young people. I'm going to call them kids because I'm 46. So,
well, they are all our kids.
They're helping me be a better Christian than anybody just their faith and their strength is helping me. You guys are helping me and inspiring me. So, man, job well done.
Yes, I think it makes me realize that you don't always preach from a pulpit.
Nope.
That's one thing I would like to say too, is like coming on here and talking about my experiences. It definitely helped me. Y'all are helping me a lot. Just speak on the things that most of the time I wouldn't speak about. It helps, like I said, let out those emotions. So I definitely thank y'all for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Well, we're glad to have you. And we learned on the last podcast that, you are doing the pipe fitter thing. You've got this trade. Like you're just moving towards all these right directions. And of course, obviously we pray for God to direct your path, and we see so much of Papa Tim in you, the way you live your life. We see so much of Daryl when you're working and mowing yards and talking to people, and we see so much of, or I know Jim does. I don't get to remember your Papa Timmy very much like he does, but we see him in you, and I do see where people say he favors you just in pictures that I've seen. And so I love that their legacy doesn't die with them, because you are here and we'll carry that.
Yep.
We love you so much.
I love y'all too. It's great to see y'all. I haven't seen y'all in a while.
Yeah, so I think we'll close on out.
All right. Well, thank you, buddy. We love you, and we always will. And so thank you for today and the last 2 episodes, and what it's going to mean for people that see that. So that will do it on that for today's podcast. Dadgum, him bringing up Danny, though, that about got me. Thank you all so much for being here and being a part of these episodes, and we look forward to our next episode, which airs, of course, every other Wednesday. Remember that our Be Like Berl podcast is inspired by our book character, Berl Squeever. You can get his books by logging on to our website, burlsqueever.com, and click the purchase link up top. Everyone try to stay safe. Be like Berl. God bless.